Well, they call it Brown University, but could that just be a perverse misnomer? A group of activists say yes, the Ivy League school is, in fact, despite its name, one of the biggest beneficiaries of centuries of white supremacy. Members of the federally unrecognized Paconet tribe have set up an encampment on Brown University land. They say that land was stolen from their ancestors and must be returned to them. And yet, for some reason, the famously progressive school isn't racing to atone for its past wrongs, despite having more than $3 billion in its endowment. Neesu Wushuwunoag is Director General of the Federation of Aboriginal Nations of America. He supports the protest effort, and he joins us tonight. Neesu, thanks a lot for coming on.
Tucker, thank you for the opportunity.
So I'm a little confused. So here you have, you're a representative of an American Indian, that Brown basically is occupying the land of your ancestors. We know that Brown has historic ties to slavery, extensive historic ties to slavery, and it's very liberal. And yet they're kind of blowing you off. I don't understand why.
Well, they don't want to admit that they're wrong in this situation, and we, by law, are absolutely correct. So that's really where the problem comes in, not wanting to admit that they're wrong.
But I mean, gee whiz, Brown has, I think, I checked today, $3.2 billion in its endowment. That's more than the GDP of more than 40 countries worldwide. So you'd think they could take some of that money and make it right.
You would absolutely think that, and it just seems, once again, that they just don't want to do the right thing. I mean, we've laid out the law for them. We've given them all of the history. They understand everything we're saying, and it's just a matter of them not wanting to transfer the land over into the Poconoket Trust. So that's really what the situation is right now.
So, you ever go to Brown? You ever see what it's like? I mean, it's like a Four Seasons over there. It's so plush. I mean, the food options are, I mean, it's like a permanent Whole Foods subsidized. They've got a fitness center. It's acres. I mean, they've got just a dance studio. It's 4,000 feet. I mean, do you ever think, like, they have so much, why not share it with people whose ancestors they wronged?
Well, I mean, that's precisely the situation that's going on. And I actually grew up in a neighborhood adjacent to Brown. For a little bit of history with my particular family bloodline, my uncle, Chief Sunset, was one of the last full-blood chiefs for my tribe. And he was in a neighborhood that was actually knocked down, and a Whole Foods was set up in that particular area. So you're talking about a lot of historical wrongdoings on the part of Brown. And the Poconokets, as I mentioned, are fully, lawfully correct in this situation. There's no debating whether or not the land is theirs.
Do you see any irony in the name of Brown University? I mean, liberal?
Well,
I mean, does it make sense to you?
No, but I think what you're dealing with is a lot of northeastern sort of racism where it's not overt, it's very covert, but it points the finger at southern racism, but it doesn't want to acknowledge its own issues and its own challenges. So I think that's what's on display right now with Brown, and it's kind of disappointing, to be quite honest.
So why do you think the school has a right to its main campus? I mean, considering it was built on the suffering of oppressed peoples, don't you think it would be better used as an Indian reservation? Would your tribe be willing to use the Brown campus? And don't you think you'd use it a little better than they do as an Indian reservation?
Well, I'm not much into reservations. We roam freely on the land, but if you're asking if it's all on Indian land, yes, absolutely it is. And you have to get back into the history of where were the treaties that were gotten when the land was taken, where was the actual bill of sale that was passed on, something that says that land was theirs, and you're not going to find it.
So why don't you set up an encampment on the quad at Brown and help yourself to some of the, delicious sushi they serve the rich kids who go there, and use the 9 swimming pools or whatever they've got in their dance studio? I mean, how do you think that will go over if you did that?
It'd probably go over pretty bad, but our people have always been people who try to do the right thing and move respectfully first. This situation that we're in right now, we approached the Attorney General of the state of Rhode Island in 2015 and expressed to them what the situation was and what our intention was, and we were just ignored for 2 years. Same thing with communications with Brown, so at some point, the disrespect has to end, and that's where we're at right now. We're hoping to work this out amicably with Brown so that those sorts of measures don't have to be taken. But when you're being disrespected and when the law's not being followed, I think you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah, and I think we might support you in that. Really quickly, though, here's my theory, and you tell me if you think it's right. So the Brown jumps up and down, all the students, we're so liberal on the side of oppressed peoples. I wonder if some of that is a cover for their own rottenness. They're basically running a $3 billion hedge fund posing as a school on the backs of oppressed people historically. Do you think maybe all the liberal stuff is so you won't look at them and kind of ask hard questions about where all the money came from?
I would agree with that to a certain extent. I think there's a lot of hypocrisy when you look to the north, and I think there's a lot of finger pointing that goes on. But, you know, there's always three fingers pointing back at yourself when you point one at someone else.
I agree.